Free advice, free advice. Would you like some free advice? Free advice, free advice forever.
Hello, ladies and gents, and everything in between. Welcome to Free Advice.
And people on the extremes, past lady and past gent.
Yes, the aliens.
Yeah.
I don't know what else.
The sub lady, the super gent.
Yes.
Not that it's a continuum where the low end is ladies and the upper end is gents. I realize
No one
I
was
may
thinking that until right now.
Well, the
thanks.
way I phrased it may have put that idea in people's heads, but I just picked
Oh, sure,
arbitrarily, and I'm subconsciously brainwashed by the patriarchy, just like all of us. I'm just a victim, man. Don't you take out your hatred
I'm just a
on
victim,
me.
man. I'm not one of those men that's walking around with lots of privilege.
Yeah, I'm not one of them. Come on, man. I've been so corrupted.
Yeah. You trying to wake up? You trying to get woke?
Trying. I set 3 alarms. I'm just so sleepy. It's so cozy.
Yeah.
With my straight white male privilege on top.
Snooze.
Guys,
9 more minutes of privilege, please.
5 more minutes. I don't want to wake up yet.
Who chose 9 minutes?
9? Oh,
Yeah.
that's the snooze
On
auto
iPhones.
for
Yeah.
I wonder if there was a discussion where Steve
10's
Jobs
too much.
like 10 would be the standard, I think.
I want more than 10. I end up snoozing for like half an hour at least.
Yeah. I went through a period, a dark time in my life, where snooze meant 2 hours of every 10 minutes hitting snooze.
That's so not what you want to be doing.
And it's
with
so
your
not who I
time.
am right now. I literally
Who are you
jump
right
out of
now?
bed. I bounce my butt off the bed when I
Uh-huh.
get up. And I
Yeah.
pop up to standing.
Okay, so give the people some free advice.
Yeah.
What helps you bounce out of bed in the morning? What are the top 3 things that you do in the morning, maybe?
I think, okay, what are the things that I
be
do after
More
that?
than 3, but
It's not like I have discovered something that I'm so stoked to do right away that I'm
yeah,
jumping
sure.
to it.
But you have a good routine. I know you do.
I do, thanks. I can't really make sense of this. I think it's
Yeah.
overcoming resistance.
Mhm.
I had resistance to certain conversations that I needed to have with friends,
Yeah.
lovers, family members, and I think when I was in that resistance and feeling that, oh, I'm still not doing this thing that I need to say, or I'm not even knowing what I'm feeling.
So it's all the resistance for you is primarily relational.
No, a large part of it was like, am I going to do this one-man show? Am I going to write this thing? There's also
Okay.
creative, artistic,
Yeah.
career versions of it. But
Right,
I'm just
right.
using that as an example.
Oh, okay, got you.
And I kind of think they're all related. Like, as soon as I open up to one person, I'm then like, oh, that felt so good. What are the other things that I can overcome resistance on? What are the other things that I'm avoiding? What else? What other problems can I face? What fear can I follow now? And seemingly gradually, somewhere around March or April of this year, I just started getting up earlier. And now, like, I went to bed at 2:30 or 3 last night. Woke up at 8:30 and was just like, well, I don't think I'm going to fall back asleep. Let's get to
Yeah.
it. Let's hop up.
So you hop up and then what
Hop
do you do?
up. Next thing I do is, if I set an alarm, which I'm not waking up to an alarm these days very much, but
Hell yeah,
if I
that's
had-
freedom.
right. If I had, I turn it off and then don't look at my phone after that.
Smart.
Go to the bathroom, poop immediately. While drinking water, I bring my water
Okay,
bottle into the
good,
bathroom and poop
good.
without the phone, because that puts me in a,
Totally.
what are other people's agendas for me? What do people think I need to be doing right now? And I'm not,
Yeah.
and that like conditions the whole day to be reactive instead of proactive. So
That's
I
a
have that poop.
beautiful, beautiful line and philosophy, and I just want to like highlight it, put a little asterisk after it, like fuck yeah.
I got so many gems. I can't pause on every one, Morgan.
I know, but I'm for the listener. I'm the highlighter. I'm that bright
Thank you.
yellow.
Thanks.
Here's what you should really pay attention to. Yeah.
So then after I poop, I go back into my room and I meditate for 10 minutes. I set the timer on the Insight timer app.
Yes.
I just sit upright and pay attention to my breath and notice when I'm not paying attention to my breath, gently let go of those thoughts, notice them and let go of them.
Yep.
And then refocus my energy on my breath. Not getting mad if I go like a full 10 minutes, even not succeeding at it. The point is just to try.
100%. I think meditation should be simple, but it's almost never easy.
Yeah, there's always some, and I'm just noticing, oh, is there more resistance today? Is there something that's coming up a
Yeah.
lot more?
And not placing a judgment on, okay,
Whether
today
that's
I
good or
have
bad.
more resistance.
Yeah, not being like, oh, this is going to be a bad day, or I'm really fucked today, like whatever I'm thinking.
I often do that. I jump to,
Yeah.
I'm fucked today.
Well, if I have that thought, then I
Yeah.
notice that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's always just another layer
Another
of
layer.
zoom out. Yeah, you never
Yeah.
have to be like identifying with the thought or the feeling. You can step back
Yeah.
again and just be an observer.
If you feel stuck, you're like in it. You're not
Yes.
hovering above it.
Yeah. So I do that, and then I have a variable like 20-minute slot after that before breakfast, which
Yeah.
I've been doing different things in different weeks.
Uh-huh.
For a little while, I was practicing piano for those 20 minutes.
Yeah.
For a little while, I was journaling about
Mhm.
what happened at Burning Man for 20 minutes to try and like record everything while it's fresh in my head.
Yeah.
I think I got to get back to mixing and like mixing songs in that time, or reading something that feels like something that I wanted to accomplish that I have some like clear mental energy for, undistracted time.
Yeah.
And then I can look at my phone after I've done that 20 minutes, and then
Yeah.
I can make breakfast and call people or listen to an audiobook or a podcast or whatever I want to do while I have breakfast.
Yeah. There is a great book that I read some of, full disclosure, not all
Yeah,
of.
I think I know what you're saying.
I think it was called Your Brain at Work, and it was by David
Never mind.
Rock, I want to say. And it basically runs through a variety of scenarios of how to optimize your time and energy based on how your brain works best. And it's like how to order your tasks based on those, and what to do and what not to do to kind of set yourself up correctly and incorrectly in terms of maximizing the limited resource that you have of like your brain's capacity for processing.
Yeah.
Found it really
Any big
effective.
takeaways? Of
That
what are
was
you
one of
meant
them.
to do first? What are you meant to do
Yeah,
later
so-
or not to?
Block out time in the beginning for that creative tasks and things that you need that clarity for,
Yeah.
and not switching gears between different types of tasks and thinking you're multitasking, because it's actually your brain having to rapidly switch between two
Sure.
different
There's
things, and that's a
start
big
off
waste
and
of
and a shutdown
Yeah.
cost of every time you switch between two
Yep.
things. Don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, having those uninterrupted periods of time and knowing when you need to be, when you function better of, okay, I'm doing better right now in a social way, having meetings versus I need alone time to accomplish these, creative tasks or isolated, small sort of take it off your to-do list
Yeah.
tasks. I think some of it is personal trial and error.
Sure.
But there are definitely tried and true things that work best for all of us that we could all kind of heed that advice on. So I think the book's called Your Brain at Work. It's good.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
You recommend this to me?
I recommend it to anyone who's interested in this process.
How heartily?
7 fucks heartily out of 10.
Out of 10? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'd
But again,
like
I
to
check really
check
speak to really the first half.
it out. Right, because that's all you got.
I would start reading it again. I
Yeah.
just, I get really, really intense and interested in things. This is just, this is an element of my personality that I am like, okay, I can move it. I can move the needle on it and grow into being a little different. But some of it, I just have to accept the fact that it's great. I get really inspired and really excited by something and I go full force into it. And then I do lose interest. And sometimes that interferes with task completion.
Yeah, same. I relate to
yeah.
you heavily on this.
Yeah. But you know what? Like, I also like to kind of like ride the wave of life, and not everything needs to be like completely finished kicking and screaming. Sometimes I can be flit like a hummingbird
Yeah.
in a more flattering image
That's nice.
from thing to thing that I enjoy and be like peppy and not weighed down. But
Right.
other times it's a detriment other times because I do want to finish things and sometimes I feel scattered.
Books definitely highlight that quality in me. When I
Yes.
look through my Kindle and I'm like, oh, there are so many of these books.
70%.
Exactly. Anywhere from like 30 to 80%. Generally, if I make it to
Mm-hmm.
80, I'm going to finish it. And if I
Yeah.
start it, I'm going to get like a decent chunk into it. But,
Right.
yeah, they're all over the place. And I'm like, oh, do I go back and read, like finish these books that I'm not currently excited about?
Yeah.
And I used to have that completionist attitude of like,
Yeah.
like treating them like a movie. I definitely watch movies that way. I don't watch like I've walked out of the theater once maybe. I don't think I've ever done it actually. I really wanted to in high life
I
this
like how
year.
you just made that faux statistic.
I like 'cause if I ever walked out it was because I was with somebody who wanted to, but I've never
see,
like
I
led the
see.
charge on I'm not enjoying this movie, let's leave the theater. I always think
I don't think I have either.
yeah, I think of I don't know what that says about me of like I'm serving the thing, it's not serving me maybe. But,
Mm.
anyway,
It's a pretty watching a
book-
movie though is pretty passive, so it's
Yeah.
easy to just stay and let the movie keep happening to you versus reading.
Right. I can go elsewhere in my mind and still be kind
Yeah.
of experiencing the movie.
You can find
whereas
something
in
to
a book,
enjoy
I
in the
have to.
experience.
There's work to do in that.
Oh yeah.
An audiobook is different
Reading
though
is
in that way
hard.
though.
Yeah,
Audiobooks are
yeah.
read to you, so I often find myself being like, oh, I should put my phone down if I'm really trying to listen to this audiobook and stop scrolling
I
through other
struggle with
shit.
audiobooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tune out.
It's good for driving or I like it for cooking, other kitchen tasks, things that are kind of on autopilot for me.
Yes,
It's really
yes.
nice when I have to use my hands, but I have a lot of mental space.
Right, because those use different kind of parts of your brain. Yeah.
I'm listening to an audiobook right now called Perfect Love, Imperfect Relationships.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I figured out how to use the bookmark function to save clips of it. And
Yeah.
I really wanted to play you a clip, but there's so much other stuff to talk
yeah.
about before this podcast. And
Yeah.
I didn't get it in.
It's so funny because Rob generally comes over to my apartment every Monday to record this podcast, as we have done today. And we have to block out like almost 2 hours to like catch up on just our lives.
Right.
And I have these moments always where I'm like, ooh, this is so interesting. And I want it to be part of the podcast because it's like often relevant to themes that come up when we sit down to do the
Yeah.
podcast. And it ends up, us sharing best practices of how we've approached certain circumstances in our lives. And I think often we talk more vulnerably in those moments than we do here. But it's interesting
because
because
the
we get to
people
merge
that we're
those.
mad at could be listening to this. You know,
We have a lot. We want to
All the
bitch and moan
shit
about you
talk.
guys.
All the shit talk is that's all our only listeners are people that we're just talking the most shit on.
That is not actually ring true for me as far as my
me
fanship.
neither. No, generally not. But I'm sure that some of the people that I'm closest with are also the people that bother me the most.
Sure.
That's just
Yes.
How that
Oh,
works,
for sure.
you know?
For
And
sure.
those may be the people that are listening. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure the identities of everyone listening to this right now.
That's
but
true.
Whoever you are, if you're listening, I'm
Yeah.
thankful that you're here.
Yes.
This is
And I
an
hope to
advice
know you.
podcast, right? We're sprinkling advice in there right now, but this is a
Yeah.
pretty casual start to an episode, I think, for us.
I like it though,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that sometimes when I feel
Can you just move a little closer to your mic?
less, it's hard because so we have this weird setup right now.
Yeah.
But that is one thing about the podcast that I feel like, and on the one hand, obviously the strength of the medium because it goes one way, but a weakness is that I do wish we had more participation and communication with you guys as the listeners.
wanna
I
get a
do
live
wish there was
audience?
more reciprocal.
Would you be comfortable
One
doing this
person?
in front of a live audience?
We should just get one.
Start. Ooh,
Yeah.
Did you ever see that Maria Bamford special? I forget what it's called, but she put it out 2 or 3 years ago on Netflix.
I saw the thumbnail, but I don't think I ever clicked on it
Okay.
because I don't love her.
Yeah, I'm lukewarm on her.
Yeah.
The format's really cool though. She starts in her bedroom performing material in the mirror,
Oh, I love it already.
and then she's doing it for her husband on the couch in the living room, and he's
Yeah.
laughing or telling, "Oh, this part's a." And then she has 3 more friends over, and they're all sitting on the couch, and she's doing
I
the material for
love
them.
it.
And then she moves onto her front porch, and it's like 10 friends at a party drinking or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it's like a small comedy club of like 20 people or so.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the
Right,
show,
right.
she's in a giant
Yeah,
stadium.
you probably could have just stopped at like 2 examples, but
Okay.
I love
it's
it.
cool to watch the progress of, and like she's doing
Yes.
repeat some of the same material from before, but like
Do you
how
see
it's
it evolve
developed.
a little? Yeah,
it's
'cause
great.
I have a real appreciation for when people put in the kind of like bumps along the road, or at least
Like
the
give
path.
you the roadmap to how to make something like this, trying to
Yes.
inspire other people, or
Yeah.
like, show you, hey, here's if you want to do this, here's what
Right.
it means to me, and here's how I did it.
Right. It doesn't just go from it's a thought that pops in my head and now I have an hour-long stand-up special. There's a lot of back and forth and
Yeah.
ugly moments and messy stuff and information woven in about the increments between by myself to in a
Yes.
giant room.
And
We don't see that enough. We're starting
I
to.
agree,
We really
yeah.
are.
People are playing with the form, and
Mm-hmm.
I think especially for comedy, it's cool to have an
Yeah.
encouraging or inspiring message like that. Like I think the value of comedy in people's lives is helping them accept their flaws by magnifying them in yourself, and then owning them and in front of a crowd of people and inviting them to laugh about it. That like gives people permission to be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, sometimes I'm stubborn too, or sometimes I have a temper or get jealous or am lazy, whatever the thing is
Yeah.
that the comic flaw is.
I think that we also are coming into an era where there's like vulnerability baked into the hero. Like the hero is now a more accessible like we can see ourselves more easily in them, and it's not just these like impenetrable images of like a superhero
When
that's
was it
big
like
and strong.
that?
And what do you mean?
I don't know. I'm not like a big ancient media.
Okay,
person.
I'm not. I'm just talking out of my ass. I'm just saying that
Okay.
like
What's changing? When is this change happening? Or like, can you trace it to a historical moment? Are you thinking of John
No,
Wayne
I
versus
can't, but sure, like someone who is.
Joey Tribbiani? I don't know who's a modern hero.
Well, I'm thinking like, okay, the classic like superhero
Yeah.
or sort of like a James Bond type where it's like they're sleek, they're perfect,
yeah.
they're impenetrable in a way versus someone who's kind of bumbling and vulnerable and not perfect, but
Yeah.
has these certain strengths that are heroic and beautiful, but in a way where they're vulnerable enough that they're accessible so that the audience can see themselves in it as a
Yeah,
flawed
that's
character.
what makes somebody compelling as a
Right.
character is like you can relate to their flaw and you share a vulnerability with them. Like
Yeah.
Peter Parker being afraid to ask out Mary Jane. That's
Sure.
like, oh yeah, okay, I can get on. I want this guy to win because I
Yeah,
also
Spider-Man
have that.
is yeah.
Right.
Versus like I would say Superman is a little less accessible than
Kryptonite is
Spider-Man.
not such a relatable flaw. He has one, but it's like totally a device that was a placeholder. Like
What's your kryptonite?
the people do use that now as
Yeah.
like for drugs or whatever vice a person have. They'll be like, that's my or that person.
Mm-hmm. What do you
my
think is your
kryptonite.
main kryptonite right now?
Mine at the moment. Oh, what's my main kryptonite? Probably World of Warcraft in this moment. I haven't even really begun
You've
playing.
just started this as like a new
haven't.
fun initiative for yourself, and it's
Well,
already your kryptonite.
You said in the moment, right?
yeah.
here's
no,
the
I
thing.
did. I did.
I
We're
felt-
live right now.
It's something that I probably was the most addicted to this out of anything in my life, and I
Mm-hmm.
recognize now the reason how that addiction or that how it served me as an escape, like the ways that I was
Yeah.
suffering and feeling
Right.
unseen or uncared for, didn't belong in
Yeah.
high school. Even though I had a relatively happy high school existence, it was nice to escape when I got home and have that. And as I found myself on the character creation screen, so for those of you who don't know, World of Warcraft Classic just came out like 2 weeks ago or so, and I had some of the old crew hit me up on the phone, being like, "Hey, we're going back. We have to go back." You know, like those Lost memes where Kate and Jack are like, "Jack, we have to go back."
Oh, good
It's
lord.
like
Yeah.
like that in Lost. Well, where am I from? In Lost.
I don't know what the fuck's going on.
You gave me coffee at the beginning of this,
So you started to cough?
Shit's not. No, good one. No, I
Thank
mean
you.
like the rapid
you're like,
transmission of
"Brrr."
ideas.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it,
there's
got it,
shit
got it,
just
got it.
coming left
Okay.
and right. Wasn't even that much coffee.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, go.
And just derail this whole thing
Sure,
because I
fuck
want to
it.
say my
It's not
kryptonite.
important. Yeah, what's your?
I kind of judged it as not that important.
I do want to talk about.
I
WoW
understand the
another time.
escapism.
Yeah.
I had that with Sims.
Okay. Dude, you're gonna love World of Warcraft if you love Sims.
Yeah.
Back to my thing.
Fuck yeah. Sniped. I like it. Myself, like my own inner demons.
You are your kryptonite.
Yes. I
Talk to me about
totally.
that.
Oh my god! I knock the wind out of
What
myself so
part
hard.
of yourself though? Like it's not
It's
the whole you, right?
No, of course, because that it's like a self, whatever the fuck. I would just implode. If that was true, I would just implode.
Yeah.
But it's that nagging voice that is always like you're not doing enough,
Mm-hmm.
and causing me to seek external validation from other people that tell me like what you're doing is fine.
Yeah.
That's right now. Sometimes I go through periods where I'm not suffering from that at all or to a negligible amount. But I am experiencing a lot right now, especially coming back from Burning Man and experiencing the contrast of having felt so empowered to just be whoever I was in the moment and felt so self-validated. Coming back into the real world, settling into it has been very strange.
I agree.
Yeah.
Can I share an anecdote that
Please.
demonstrates that for me? I was driving over here with the top down.
Oh wow, this is a really recent anecdote.
Yeah, this was this morning. This morning, I was driving around, shirt off, sunglasses on, listening to the song called "Top Down" by Earth Gang.
Sick, bro.
They just dropped Mirrorland. I was like dancing along
I
to
love
it at a
it.
stoplight, and this guy pulls up next to me with a DSLR camera, sticks it out of his window, and like starts filming me.
No.
While I'm dancing, and my first reaction is tell him to ask people permission before
Yeah.
you film them, which is like what you'd do at Burning Man and what people would enforce in that community.
Right.
And my second I don't do that. I am like,
Yeah.
he's enjoying this and he finds it amusing.
Yeah.
And I don't really care how
And
he
it probably
uses
won't
this.
end up anywhere.
Post it online and make it go viral, dude. Oh no. Like I'm gonna be the guy that they're memeing for, even
5
if that
seconds.
happened, exactly. It would be a blink of an eye, which that's not going to happen. There's more
Yeah, it's
entertaining
all
things
good.
happening all around me.
Yeah.
I'm not the center of the universe.
No, you're center of my universe in some ways.
Thank you. But I decided, like, okay, get him in on the fun. Like, play with him and
Yeah.
point at him and like perform for
Take
him.
your phone
Sure.
out
What the
and
fuck?
start recording
film
him.
back. No, but like this is something that is clearly not that common for him. That he's like got out his nice camera. I don't know whether
Sure,
he had
sure,
it out
sure.
while he was driving or where that came from. Like it's kind of a weird thing to have in the driver's seat. Like just driving along, snapping shots,
Not the time,
manipulate
guy.
the focus, right? But
Yeah.
I just leaned into it and I was like, I don't really mind him seeing me in this state and
Yeah.
recording it and doing whatever. He's gonna go home and jerk off to it. I don't give a fuck. Like, have your fun, dude. Sure, cool. Like, what is it? Why would I choose to be angry
Yeah.
and protective of my image in this state? Whereas,
Right.
like, I'm not really gonna be humiliated if someone sees me dancing in my car and just
No,
like
I love
if they
that.
judge me and are like, oh, what a fool, he's making out of himself. Cool. Like,
Yeah.
whatever that my worry
Yeah.
was unnecessary. So I just like let it happen and kept dancing and
Yeah.
danced bigger because I was like, oh, now I have an audience. Someone's enjoying this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely have that experience when I'm in the car singing and dancing. I always do that. I go big.
I realize that's related to Burning Man if I didn't make that clear because like that's
Yeah.
the type of thing that a lot of people would
You
be
were in
doing at
that
Burning
mode.
Man wouldn't be a big deal. And I'm like, oh, I'm in the default
Oh,
world.
I see.
And out here, like, it's rare to see somebody not be self-conscious and see somebody not being like, how do I fit in this moment and how do I not disrupt the way that
Yeah.
things are going? Whereas like out there, that's every fucking where you turn is a person having their own little party.
I also want to really quickly,
Yeah.
for people who don't know, number one,
Yeah.
burners have super pretentious little lingo for everything. Not everything, but a lot of things.
What-
and I
what
find
did
it
I
kind
say?
of like silly, but I like to point it out because
Did
to
I say some
translate
lingo?
Default world. So
Oh, yeah.
the burners called the lives that everyone else live that have nothing to do with being on the playa at Burning Man is
Yeah.
called the default world. So outside of those norms that are constructed for Burning Man.
Yeah. It's a lot like the
But I think it's
phrase
kind of pretentious.
IRL
But I use
when
it
you're
too.
in World of Warcraft and
Yeah.
people are like, well, IRL, I do this. I'm not a Tauren shaman IRL. I'm a fucking human accountant.
As opposed to a calculator.
Yeah, thinking about yeah.
Or something that performs much more complex calculations than that. I don't know what accountants do. It's very obvious that I don't.
Yeah.
I'm pinching my own nipple right now.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I find myself doing that now sometimes, and then I'm like, this is like not sexual, but it is happening.
Maybe you have some milk you need to release. Have you considered that? If you need to go to a milker, they have those. This is LA, baby. It's expensive, but it's there. Los Angeles.
I think that's a great place to dive right into.
Yeah, lightning round.
Lightning fucking round.
All right, the first question in lightning round comes from a reader named Bobby Joe Jim Jack Billboy, and he asks, "How do I play World of Warcraft but not make it take over my life?"
Well, Bobby Joe Dingle Dong, that's a great question that you've written us with and didn't improvise on the spot just for yourself. I think that before you get into the mind state of playing the game and
Yeah.
start playing, it's important to set an expectation about how long am I going to spend doing this? What amount of energy am I going to devote to this? And what am I willing to sacrifice for this game and the time I would spend playing it? And what am I not willing? Because
Yeah.
once you get in that state of being in the game, you're like, well, I'll just do one more thing. If you don't set that concrete expectation at the outset of like, this is the amount of resource I have to dedicate this. And if I devote more, then I really have to think about, okay, what happened there? Where was that disconnect between the gaming self that takes on that kind of addicted, like sneaky quality of like, just a little
Snaky.
more, just a little more. Yeah. One more power, one more level. I don't know anything about World of Warcraft.
You're nailing the terminology.
Yeah. One more wizard acquisition.
Just need to get me one more wizard. Come on, Blizzard, send me a wizard. Blizzard's the company that makes World of Warcraft, so it's both a rhyme and a joke that's appropriate for that.
Yeah, because it's all too easy, and it still can be too easy to. If you find yourself breaking these commitments with yourself, then it's time for a real renegotiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So, what's an example of a good way to set an intention like that and a bad one? Like, if I'm
Yeah.
say I'm going to write these down.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Number one,
Yeah.
it has to be clear.
clear.
It has to be worded in a way where you can't monkey around with it in that addicted state.
Yeah, where I'm
know?
like, well, technically, I'm
yes.
still
Yes. So it has to be super well worded and clear.
specific. Then.
So
Okay.
then the next one is like specific.
Yeah.
Know exactly what you're talking about. And the third one is like quantifiable, measurable, tangible. So like X number of hours or, you know, some amount of progress.
Yes.
But generally time is better than progress because
Time.
you're always
Okay.
chasing the progress.
Ooh, I'm now remembering an acronym called SMART goals.
Yes, yes,
Specific,
yes.
measurable, attainable,
Uh-huh.
realistic, and timed.
Timed. Yeah.
Damn.
It's
Cool.
similar to that. Just
Okay.
anything that prevents you from having wiggle room once you're in that like little
Yes.
slimy state.
Yeah, but I love entering the slimy
Yeah,
state.
I know.
And I think, I know my mom's listening to this, so I'm just gonna out her. Hey, mom. Watching TV series with her was both an enabling and a teaching of like, isn't it fun to just watch one more? This was
Yeah.
before Netflix. We were like watching 24 on DVD. We'd like as a family sit down. Okay, me, mom, and dad go watch one episode of 24. He'd get ready to go to bed, and she was like, "You want to just do one more?
Oh my God,
let's
yes.
leave him in the dust."
And having a family member who is like condoning that behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was fun. I mean, these were
course.
addictive ass TV shows, not unsimilar to the way that doing one more instance or one
Yeah.
more quest in World of Warcraft was. And like, yeah, it's fun
Yeah.
to do just one more.
And I think that permitting yourself to do that every once
Yeah.
in a while is fun. It's like
Agreed.
It's like being that parent who, you know, is like the fun parent a little
Break
bit.
bedtime tonight,
But
just a little.
Exactly. Like let's have breakfast for dinner. But you can't do that all the time or else number one, it's not special.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, you're not doing the more important job of the parent, which is to have that secure rule setting
Yes.
structure.
I feel like I had a lack of rules. Generally, growing up, this is the fundamental difference between Morgan and Rob,
Yes.
as we've discussed.
We've come up with a cute nickname for it. Is that it? The fundamental difference?
Yeah, sure.
Kind of forget.
I do too.
Yeah,
But
the yin and yang.
the
Yeah.
gap.
TFT.
Yeah. I had a lack of rules, and I think that I've been trying to implement rigid rules for me to follow and then feel like I'm successfully passing that stage of development on my own. And something that came up for me at Burning Man in a great conversation I had was about like the difference between a rule and a principle or guideline.
Ooh.
And
Tell us.
well, just that everything that I think is a good idea to follow doesn't need to be a hard rule. A lot of them can be
Yeah.
flexible guidelines of, in most situations, I would like to act this way, but notice when there are exceptions and when the guideline is not serving the purpose that I originally instated
Right,
it for,
right.
then create an exception and do the other thing in those moments. So
Yeah.
I'd like to start making more guidelines or principles for myself
Yeah.
rather than rules of like, if it's before 10 p.m., I'm not allowed to play World of Warcraft because that's time for work or whatever. you know?
Yes. Yes. I feel really similarly and I'm kind of trying to do a similar thing. And one of the other elements of it is you also have to have sort of a hierarchy between your principles because there will be certain things where you're like, oh, according to this principle, you know, this would be the winning outcome. And according to this one. So you have to decide, okay, what is the most important overarching one that most aligns with my values so
Yep.
that I'm acting on that.
You just said the key word. This is determining values.
There's a great online assessment kind of quiz that you can
Yeah.
take called the Life Values Inventory. I believe it's lifevaluesinventory.org.
Lifevaluesinventory.org.
Yeah. And you know, it's a relatively simple online tool for free that asks you a series of questions and then also asks you to rank them and determine what priority levels they are, which ones do you need to do put more energy in the bucket of, which ones do you need to put less energy in the bucket of.
Interesting.
It's simple, but it's very helpful to get a clear starting point and foundation and give you some language around what happens when these things conflict. And basically
Yeah.
that's what causes stress when your values conflict.
With your
It's
actions or
fascinating.
with what you're noticing about yourself, or when your values
when
conflict,
your
how?
when your values conflict in terms of you value independence, but you also value community.
Yeah.
So knowing which one, not only do you care about more, but in the moment, which one are you trying to bring up more in your life and which one are you trying to bring up less, and in which domains of your life, like work versus relationships, is a really, really helpful tool. And the stress comes from when, there's overlap.
Yeah. Cool.
So the more you know.
I'd like to check that out. Is it
I
free?
do it every once in a while. Yeah, it's free.
Okay.
I've done it a couple times
I'm
in my
in.
life. Yeah.
Here I go. You want to just pause the podcast? I'm just kidding. This is lightning round.
This is like the slowest lightning of all time. Pachoo, pachoo.
Well, that first person seemed like they really needed help, so I'm glad
Yeah,
that Bobby came back.
Good luck, Bob.
Yeah. Next up. All right, sure. Kratom -up -the THA -pupa. Kratom up the
Kratom.
pupa. Actually, I think I learned how to pronounce this from the last
Kratom.
person. Yeah.
What was it?
They said kratom is what they said or something. I forget.
We already forget. We already don't know.
They
Sorry,
definitely
dude.
told me how to
Monkey
pronounce it.
7.
Yeah, hey, good work.
I know.
But Kratom up the pupa says asks
Okay.
how to stop being quote casually racist.
Ooh, I need this advice sometimes.
First off, you came to the right people. We're both white, and don't worry, we have all the answers.
Get ready to
So,
get splained too.
Yeah, don't worry. We're
Yeah,
just the
yeah.
experts. So I have a very diverse group of friends, and we all call each other racial slurs. For example, I'm either cracker boy, sister fister, or white trash, and I call all my friends various racial slurs based off their respective race, with the exception of the N-word, because I feel like saying that isn't really a joke. Anyway,
Cool.
even though we've all been friends for years and none of us have had any problems with it, I worry that it's starting to become too casual.
Okay.
Racism has actually almost become a way to bond for me. Like if a friend and I can't be racist to each other, we're not really close friends. Is this bad, or am I just worrying about nothing?
First thing I want to say is fuck yeah for getting to that point of self-awareness
Yeah.
and development where you're like, you know what? I'm noticing this is tipping over the edge of what might be appropriate. I want to be informed and recalibrate.
Yeah.
Because so too often group mentalities prevent this from happening, where the culture doesn't shift and everyone is kind of going along with it, even though maybe their individual members or even the group as a whole would be better off by reevaluating what are our priorities, what does this mean to us, and let's do something better. So fuck yeah, you notice you guys are outgrowing that skin of like ways of relating, and you want to know what's a better balance.
Yeah,
That's
or
dope.
you want to contain it to a specific environment and it's feeling too casual and it's bleeding into situations where it might not be okay.
Yeah.
Recognizing that difference. This reminds me a lot of the cursing, the value of cursing.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
ever looked into that? Like, people curse and it feels good to curse because it's kind of like saying, hey, we're in a little group of people who are okay recognizing that we're not going to be proper all the time. Like, we're cool here because we're breaking the rules together and we accept each other for it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys are doing something like that.
Yeah.
Using these words.
So I think that a great start would be to name, just like you did, that, it seems like racism is what I'm using now as this metric of closeness between people and familiarity. So you could make a conscious choice to think, okay, what else affirms that?
Yeah.
And how can I replace racism with this other thing? For example, genuine expressions of gratitude.
Yeah. Or being sexist. There's a whole it's a whole range
Just
of
migrate
racism.
all of your racism to sexism. That'll
Yeah.
solve it. Psych, don't do that. You'll end up with the same exact problem in 10 minutes.
Yeah, probably even quicker.
Yeah, because there are I don't even know what that means. Quicker than 10 minutes? Like immediately?
Yeah, just that.
It wouldn't work.
Yeah, bitches be prevalent. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, BBP.
Yeah,
So,
as they say.
yeah. Because I think there are ways to express intimacy and comfort
Yeah.
even better than racism.
Name one.
Okay,
Yeah.
here's a great example. So
There are other rules you can break.
there are other rules you can break, but you can also shift it to something that's both fun and positive.
Yeah.
So on the road trip home from Burning Man, for example,
Mm-hmm.
Rob and I developed this joke about
What do we do?
where instead of like roasting each other, like instead of doing
yeah.
like a sick burn, you throw out just like a really unexpected, super flattering and sincere compliment, and then you like, oh, like what was the word we
Got him. Like
Got-
I don't
yeah, I
remember.
don't know.
I don't remember. But yeah, you react to it like you gave him a sick burn, but you actually said something really
Really,
nice.
and it's still funny because it's kind of subverting
Yeah.
the medium.
Yeah. Wish we
And
had
you
an
get to feel
example.
good.
Man, wouldn't this have been great if we demonstrated it with an example instead of just explaining what the joke is generally?
Well, you
Yeah.
guys use your imagination.
It'll be way funnier if you come up with it. Don't lean on us for this shit, okay? Like, do some your own work, all right? This is free advice. It's not paid advice. Stop complaining.
It's freemium advice, really. We give you some, we expect you to do some.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the first thing to do, which you've done, is have a dialogue with yourself because you've already gotten to this point of noticing and observing this phenomenon.
Props for that.
Props for that. The second thing is bringing it to your group or, soliciting advice like through this kind of forum where you get other people's input before you bring it to your group of friends or try to implement something
Maybe
new.
pull the person who you think is most like-minded aside and talk about it with them one-on-one first, and that'll make it easier to talk to other people like, oh yeah, this person also thinks like me. If you find that out in that conversation, great.
Yeah.
That's a great entry point.
Yeah. Yeah. Using them to kind of bounce your idea off
Yeah.
of and see if they have similar thoughts already.
Right?
But yeah, I think that it's hard for us to say like, well, this % of casual racism is still acceptable. Free advice, thumbs up of approval. I think you can go by your gut feeling.
I have a
And I think you
decent
can
rule on
evolve
that.
slowly and incrementally.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think a dogmatic way of looking at this, and something that's peddled a lot in today's world, and it may be helpful for certain people in certain communities, is to say these are words that nobody should ever say. A pragmatic way of looking at it, which I'm often in favor of pragmatism, excuse me, is to say the important thing is how the words affect the people that are hearing them.
Yeah.
If you run into a cave and yell the N-word, I don't think that it really hurts anybody. And so, like, it may mess with your psychology to do that all day for 10 days straight. So I don't recommend doing that type of retreat for yourself. But like, that is not as harmful as somebody using a saying like sister fister in front of somebody who is insecure about their places being welcome as the race that they are in the moment that they are. So it's more about focusing about how your words affect the people around you than what words are okay and what words are not. And if you're getting into a state where you're really casual about throwing some of these words around automatically with friends, and then there are other people present who maybe don't have that understanding, and you're being exclusive or making them or creating conditions that cause them to feel insecure, then it's a good idea to clean this up and be more conscious of when you're doing it and when you're not doing it.
You can also, if you want to go one step further than just thinking about, okay, who's present and what are they going to think about it, you can bring in imaginary other friends that are, would theoretically be victims of the thing that you're saying, and ask yourself, okay, if this person and I had the type of relationship where they knew me fairly well and knew that I had good intentions, would this still be hurtful? Just sort of bringing them in as almost this imaginary approval committee, and thinking about if they were there, how would it feel? And imagining that kind of imaginary community is there all the time, so that then you're not having to worry about policing yourself differently based on who's around.
Yes.
And then you can feel in a blanket way like, I'm saying the right things. Da-da-da.
Something about that simulation caught my ear, which was
There are definitely other applications.
no. The assuming that they know that I'm a good person with good intentions can be applicable to certain long-term friendships and people that you have an established relationship with.
Sure.
But if you're speaking around strangers, I often made the mistake, and still do, of assuming that these people know that I'm liberal, feminist, open-minded, self-aware, a number of things that upon just looking at me, you might not know that. I mean, I have earrings, but beyond that, like, you might not have a lot of guesses that I'm woke like that.
And that gives you a lot of info, those earrings.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it does tell you that I might not be extremely conservative.
Probably not.
People can make that inference at least.
Yeah.
But
And some people, though, will assume the worst intentions of you no matter what and will be pissed no matter what the fuck you say.
That's true, but I can move the needle and
Yes.
increase the likelihood that they will receive me without fear and defensiveness.
Yeah.
And so I can't assume that people know that I have good intentions and that I'm so woke and all of those things. A lot
Right.
of people are
Yeah.
like on the lookout for, and with good reason, people who are persecuting them, and
Yeah.
I don't want to trigger that for them. So sometimes the jokes that I'll make in this podcast, if it's your first time hearing this and you tune in at the
Yeah.
moment where I say bitches be prevalent, you might be like, oh, it's another sexist podcast by a bunch of people who like just think women are sex objects to be used by men. And I think Morgan knows me pretty well that is not my approach to gender relations. But I got to be aware that like, all right, I am
Yeah.
taking a risk by
Yeah.
doing that. And comedy is calculated risks and trying to like find the edge and aim just shy of crossing the line, I think.
Yeah,
in
and I
many ways.
think I totally agree. And I guess what I was trying to point out is there are gradients of how you can police yourself on
Yeah.
this. You can decide the calibration that's appropriate where you feel like, okay, I'm crossing that line, a
Yeah.
percentage that I'm comfortable with and the percentage that generally the people around me are comfortable with and or can handle the buyback phase.
What's the buyback phase?
When you cross the line and then you
Oh,
have to
yeah.
buy them back.
Using that-
Which I often do. I'm using it as casual slang
yeah.
because I'm frequently in a buyback phase.
Yeah. We crossed the line.
Yeah. I like to cross the line. I
Yeah.
like to also not, because of the fundamental
That's how you
difference
know where it
between
is.
Rob and me. Right.
Yeah.
I am trying to repeal a lot of the rules and structure that I was brought up with that felt excessively,
Mm-hmm.
unnecessarily rigid. And so because of that, I often am too lax.
Yeah.
So I end up saying something that under a microscope or just regular vision is not super cool.
Yeah.
And I have to own that mistake and take responsibility for it and try to factor that calculation in the next time, but not completely shut myself down, which I've struggled with as well.
My final piece of advice on
Yeah.
this is ask for advice from someone who's experienced more oppression, a more minoritized person
Fuck
than me
yes.
and Morgan, and me in particular.
Yes.
Um,
Then
this
you're
I'm
racist. This is
repeating
racist
things that people
specifically.
have told me
Yeah.
that I respect because they seem to have been more the victims of
Yeah.
some type of racism, and I'm just regurgitating some of my learnings to you.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be better to take it from a firsthand source and not me reading for the part of white Jesus today and every other day.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for
cool.
asking.
Yeah, that was a good one. I'm glad we did that. Kratom up the poopa. Is that a good way of taking kratom? I don't know. We're gonna do a special kratom episode one of these months. But get
We
to the
both
bottom of this.
try kratom and do the
On air,
episode
yeah.
and see what happens.
Yeah.
We should definitely do a series of episodes on
where
different
we-
substances.
Where we explore advice from different
Yeah.
psychological point of views. All right. Here's one from Dogu189.
Okay.
Always feeling psychologically alert in an anxious family environment. Please help. Hey, I am a 19-year-old male from Turkey. Just
Ooh.
a little sum about my family. My dad is and always has been valetudinary, which means valetudinary. I had never heard of it. Don't worry, he goes on to explain it immediately
Thank
in
God.
parentheses.
Thank
A
God,
person
thank
who
God.
is excessively concerned about his or her health.
Oh.
Don't you hate that when someone who English isn't their first language teaches you a word and you're like, man, this is supposed to be my language. I'm supposed to know all the words and you're supposed to know just a subset of words I know.
I'm okay with it. I like it. Valetudinary.
Yeah, valetudinary, which is a person who is, I think it's an adjective probably, but meaning excessively concerned about his or her health. My mom, after being married with my dad for over 10 years, has involuntarily also become valetudinary.
So she's a valetudinarian.
That sounds like it.
Okay, just checking.
This led to me becoming also one.
Oh God.
As the title says, I always feel on alert, like the mini version of fight or flight, neither feeling relaxed nor happy. I believe this is because of the family environment, as my dad and mom always complain because they have physical pain, ache, just generally being overly concerned about their health. I thought this was the norm of my happiness.
Something about the way that you said that sounded like a robot reading.
Happiness is in quotes. Until like I don't understand happiness, and I'm like, what is happiness?
I mean, I feel like that's all of everyone's attitude. Happiness, what is that?
Yeah, right. I'll buy a book about it that promises it to me.
Yeah. 10 simple steps.
Let's listen to 25 episodes of podcasts by these two fucks in LA. All right. Man, sorry, whatever your name is from Turkey. I'm really botching this question with a lot of diversions. Okay.
We're teaching him to just accept and relax.
Yeah, exactly. I thought this was the norm of my happiness until I went on a vacation with my friends where I was happy and relaxed first in a very long time and slept like a baby.
Fuck yeah.
I literally came back from the vacation 5 minutes ago and already started feeling alert and not happy.
Yeah.
What should I do? I would massively appreciate help. Just want to feel happy again.
I love this question so much. I feel like we probably could have done an entire episode on this question.
Yeah. You want to save it?
This
you can cut this and go back.
Nope.
Okay.
This resonates with me so much. As someone who is pretty much constantly trying to shed a lot of the things that didn't work about my upbringing that plague my daily life, including exactly the symptom that you're discussing of just that constant, like, something's wrong filter on top of everything, where it's like fixing, tweaking to the point where you're never actually just settling into contentedness.
Yeah.
So mad props for asking this question, and I'm really excited to dive into it.
Floor's all yours. What do you got?
Oh, geez. Okay. So noticing it, of course, step one. Like the fact that you got to have a reprieve from it in order to come back and
That
realize,
vacation.
this is a problem. And helping you to see your experience through that lens of like, oh, I can change how I interact with the world around me to create a different internal experience. Okay, so now that I know that that's possible, what are the specific elements of each sort of column A and column B, the valetudini and the freedom, let's say. What are the characteristics of each of those things? What are the systems and structures in place that reinforce them? And then by knowing it and studying it, you can figure out, you can kind of reverse engineer the tools that you need to dismantle it.
You're 19 right now. I've been there. And I've also experienced some of these feelings. And it's not at odds with loving my family. I think that it's a common experience that happens all the time because we're in such a fast-changing world that often I can feel like I resemble my times more than my father, and that like my family doesn't understand me because I grew up with the internet and they didn't, as one example amongst 100.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and kids everywhere, I think this is a shared experience to various degrees. You sound like you have a case of it that right now feels really severe. And here's what I think is going to happen. You're going to seek more experiences where you hang out with friends, go on vacations with friends, and avoid vacations with your family.
Yep.
And you're probably going to expose yourself to some circumstances that seem a risk to your health, or like you might get sick. You might go outside in the winter without a coat on and catch the sniffles and defiantly accept that and be like, it's not so bad to get sick, Mom and Dad. I don't need to be a valuditarian. You know?
I eat all the veludes I want.
And that'll be important for you,
Yeah.
and you'll recover from the sickness, or you won't get sick, and you'll realize, like, I don't need to carry hand sanitizer with me everywhere. And that'll be an important part of your individuation. You'll be individuating then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then probably you will find a stable life, if it's possible for you economically and socially to move away or not depend on them and not have to see them as much. You'll probably seek distance from them, and then you may feel self-sufficient and like you have an identity independent of them and a belonging that does not need their approval. And then you may come back to them and talk to them about these things. And in that phase, there might be an opportunity for you to express your anger or feeling of alertness. And maybe you're doing this already, but once you feel like you don't depend on them as much, I think that it's easier to have that conversation from a calm place and have it not turn into a big fight. And maybe they'll accept that, maybe they'll reject that, but you may find that you can have a relationship with them when you don't feel like you have to take on this nervous or anxious energy and this non-relaxed way of being around them.
I think an important disclaimer or sort of umbrella policy that I want to tack on to what Rob just said is that the first step is fixing yourself.
Yeah.
And really the only step that you can guarantee is working on yourself. You can't guarantee that even if you do all the change and all the work you need to do to change your mindset, that it's going to infiltrate your family's culture. And don't let the fact that your family's culture is around this and may not change inhibit your growth. Because like we said, you're 19, they're older, they're a little more stuck in their ways, and they've found what works for them to survive. And that's through this alertness, these complaints, this negative sort of orientation.
Yeah.
And part of that is a sort of assumption that I'm flawed as I am, and I will be better or I will be whole once this other thing is achieved. And so I also want to caution against, as you listen to us give advice, falling into that mindset. You can stand up from wherever you're sitting right now and be like, I'm whole, I'm striving to be content, and striving not to be in this eternal mindset. And then there kind of goes the day-to-day maintenance of that and the mindfulness of, okay, now that I recognize that this is how I want to be, when I'm reverting to my old ways and I realize that, celebrating that I did and redirecting your energy differently. I mean, this is a principle that applies to any kind of change in behavior that you want to implement. It's noticing when you have fallen back and touching back in with yourself to make that conscious effort to do whatever the new thing is that you want to implement.
Yeah.
And so
focusing on the positive instead of
Right.
not on the negative, because whatever you focus on grows and you see more of that.
Yes. So with this particular issue, it's very sticky and easy to stay in that negative, like always fixing, always perpetual discomfort, perpetual striving state. And so one practice that might help you as sort of a starter kit is reminding yourself to have gratitude for the fact that you even got to see this alternative way of being, and remembering that you have friends that you can be in this more relaxed, happy mindset with, and that you even found that. And perhaps that gives you some empathy for your family who wasn't exposed to that, and they are the more evolved version of what they came from.
Yeah. I think once you gain some distance or independence from this way of thinking, it may help you to examine what are the causes that cause my dad to be such a health freak. And then you may find it easier to have compassion for him or forgive that behavior and the stress that it's caused you if you look at him as, oh, he's influenced, maybe it was a sickness as a child or someone in his family, and that may, if you can trace it to a source, may make it easier for you to forgive him for the pain that this has caused you.
Yeah. Yeah. So acknowledging that every human being on this planet is just there trying to do their best, and some people are more entrenched in the tactics they've chosen to try to do that to the point where it no longer serves them.
Yeah.
But every time you kind of pop your head above water and remember, like, oh, it's freer up here, it's better up here, you're helping yourself grow up that ladder and get to the place that you want to be. So, like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I forget to tell myself this all the time. I get so lost and so steeped in, like, must be better, must do this, must know this, must achieve this. And I forget to enjoy my goddamn life. You forget that you worked so hard to get to the state you're in now.
Yeah.
And you're always striving for the next thing. And so it's that day-to-day mindfulness practice of, okay, Morgan, we set the goddamn intention to be relax, enjoy your life, trust that the X, Y, or Z thing that you're striving for now will eventually fall into place. The point of your life isn't to just scramble the whole time.
Yeah.
You want to scramble and rest and enjoy the polarity of that.
And there are factors in your life that will try and claim you for one side or the other entirely. Of the school system is about how can you exploit your natural talents and gifts. It's all about that mindset of turning you into someone who's productive and makes things and contributes. And then there's a whole nother way of being. Yeah, right.
Fucking
of
capitalism.
just being and not exploiting anything, not contributing anything, not accomplishing anything, or just being still. I mean, let's say you become a monk and meditate. I don't know, maybe monks are contributing something to the outside world, but that is, people respect that if you're wearing a robe, but not, but don't respect that if you're on your couch and you have your parents' Netflix subscription, you know?
If you're in a robe and you've fastidiously shaved your head, you're good.
You're
if
good
you're
to
in a
watch as much
robe
Netflix
and you
as you
have
want.
hair overgrown everywhere and you go get a job, no.
Right,
Fuck no.
right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
where you position yourself.
Interesting.
It seems intentional that you meant to be doing nothing, then it's, wow, so much respect for that person and their lifestyle. But if it seems like you're in a world where you were trying to have a job and you don't, then it's like, oh.
What a failure.
Person should have just been a monk from the start. Yeah.
It's all a perspective. It's all like a filter. And
Mm.
we get so stuck in our respective ones that we forget that other people experience completely different realities and are like fine with it.
Yes.
You can be whatever you want to be.
And when you're on your deathbed, you're probably not going to be thinking about how other people saw you as the most important measure of your life of, oh man, people really didn't judge me for being a slob. I'm so glad that I was productive in my 20s or however old you are, 19. It's up to you to decide what's important and what kind of life you want to live. It's yours. No one else can live it for you. And so determine how much do you want to exploit and how much do you want to explore? How much do you want to be in that doing phase? And how much do you want to be in that, like, stepping back and just soaking it all in? What's the right balance for you?
Yes. I think just quickly, explore, exploit
That's a
idea.
different
Could you
paradigm.
just quick little definite, if they were in a textbook, it's like highlighted, like here's the definition of this principle.
I think I got this from Alison Gopnik, who wrote a book called The Gardener and the Carpenter on 2 different parenting styles.
Huh.
And
Because I've heard this expression.
so exploration is what kids naturally do, and exploitation is more what adults naturally do. Exploration is non-goal oriented. It's not. There's no specific product in mind at the end. It's just like, let's see what's here. Let's see what's there. It's more of a state of
interesting.
play, and I would say probably is more aligned with a person's femininity. Whereas exploitation is about, okay, I know how to speak 2 languages, so I'm going to translate this many pages and make this much money, and I'm going to accomplish this goal, and I'm going to become a better translator than this person, and I'm going to contribute to society by like making sure that this book is readable in this language, and that's more of an exploitative
Interesting.
way of approaching that. Whereas exploring is like, oh, what's that sound that someone's making with their mouth? I'd like to learn this language, or I'd like to, not even having that goal of learning it, but
I've heard it differently of like,
Really?
yeah. I think someone was sort of explaining it in the context of like, let's say you are deciding where to eat,
okay.
and the explorer position would be, let's try something new and take a chance, and take on the
Yes,
risk
I think
of
that
like this
also
could be
works.
bad, versus exploit. Like, I know that this restaurant has this dish that I like, and I know what kind of experience I'm going to have, so I'm going to just do it.
That's in line with this paradigm as
Yeah.
well, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I also think of it as like inhaling and exhaling. Like exploring is you're gathering information, you're inhaling, and then exploiting is what are you going to do with that? Like, how are you going to use
You're
it?
condensing it into a value.
cause? Yeah, like where are you going to blow that air? Are you going to inflate a balloon? Or are you
Interesting.
going to what? You know?
Yeah, I do see
blow
that
out a
as fitting
candle.
the feminine masculine then. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for that little timeout. I think we probably
was-
sufficiently covered the question and more.
And that sneakily was actually not in the lightning round. That was our main question. today.
Really?
Based on the amount of time we spent on it, yeah. Why not? I mean, we got to wrap this thing up. So, like, yeah, that was the main question, suckos. Thank you so much to DogU189 for sharing your predicament with us. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
What can people do if they are experiencing any kind of situation they want advice on?
They can email freeadvicepodcast@gmail.com. Write us your little situation.
Yeah.
Let us help you with it.
Or
We
just
want to.
throw it up on Reddit's advice subreddit and hope for the best that we get to it. No, it's better to email us.
Yeah. Definitely email us.
Yeah. We love the emails.
Yes.
Even if you don't have
it's
advice
so
and you just want to, like,
great.
some people have been sending in pictures of them listening with their puppy, and their new puppy loves the podcast. And it's like so nice to receive those puppy pictures. So just, feel free to do that.
Do we accept other pets?
As long as they're mammals. Please no fish pics.
No one wants an unsolicited fish pic.
No. Mm-mm. Sorry. Gross.
Can they even really hear it through the water? That's what I'm wondering.
Right? Yeah. I don't know.
Fuck yeah. No, that was great. I think we
Yeah.
should get a specific sound effect for the lightning round. No, I mean
Is
like
that
not
okay?
one that we hand make, vocally make, but like a little button we can push that like does a specific thing.
I'm down, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could get like one of those Staples buttons
Yes.
that says, that was easy.
Except, yeah, we would program it to make a lightning sound of some kind.
Do you know programming?
No.
Do you know how to reprogram
No.
a Staples button?
No, I'm just.
So this is one of those things Rob's going to do. Just,
it
hey,
on
Rob,
the
you know what would be
Rob
cool
list.
for you to figure out how to
no,
do it
no,
and
no.
do for
I'll
me?
figure it out. I'll find a sound effect. I'll
Oh,
find a
will
sound
you?
effect. I'll find a little audio file.
And
I will
you're
send
gonna
it
put
to
it
you.
on a Staples. Oh, you're gonna send me an audio file, and it's my job to get it
No,
into
you're
the
just gonna
Staples
put it
button?
in. You're just gonna. It's a post-production audio engineering thing. We're not really gonna have a button.
I mean, the employees.
It would be fun.
The
for us.
employees at Staples seem pretty helpful. You wanted me to ask them about reprogramming it, or like getting to the guy who says that was easy and getting him to say this instead, and just like redoing one of the buttons.
Okay, what if we even recorded us doing the
Yeah.
pachoo pachoo pachoo?
Oh,
Yeah.
but then put it on a button that we could smack.
Listen, it doesn't really have to be a button. My point is
red
just
button.
for internal consistency and a recognizable sound for us to have as an effect
I think that my
after the fact. Doesn't
my
have to be live.
consistency is pretty
Yeah.
is pretty up there.
Yeah.
I think
90th
they're all-
percentile?
Yeah, they're the same. Right? Like if
Yeah.
you gave a blind or a deaf test to somebody who is trying to distinguish the difference between
What's a blind and deaf test?
like a double blind test. Like because this is related to audio, I was like maybe there's such a thing as a
I
deaf
see.
test.
I see. I see.
Yeah. But if you want real scientific results, you got to give them the Helen Keller, which is both.
So, do we feel like the new metric for comfort in our podcasting and friendship is making fun of Helen Keller? Should we repeal it?
Helen Keller's been dead long. The statute of limitations on Helen Keller
Yeah,
jokes.
I agree.
She's died for our for our comedic sins. I think she's kind of comedy Jesus. Like, thank you, Helen Keller, for suffering so much
That
and giving
is
us
so
all a common
true.
reference point of someone that we can be like, well, fucking glad at least it wasn't her.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, it's so cool that you learned how to write and shit by somebody spelling a W in your
Yeah.
hand while they were running water over
And the
it.
water
It
thing,
still
yeah.
doesn't make sense to me how you pieced that together.
I've only ever seen it like parodied.
Yeah.
I've never really seen the real movie.
Doesn't seem right. But
I didn't even know her personally.
you know,
Yeah.
those facial burns that you had from the time that you answered the iron, they give
Oh.
us some great laughs. And the times that your parents punished you
Yeah.
by rearranging the furniture, like there's a lot of great jokes that have to do with
Oh, that's
you.
a really sad one. I didn't know that about the furniture rearranging.
This is a joke.
Oh,
Like,
it's a
how
joke.
do you punish Helen Keller?
Oh.
How did her parents punish her? Rearrange the furniture.
Shit. I could she should be
Do you
thudding
have
all
any-
over the
do you have
place.
any good Helen Keller jokes to wrap this one up?
What can Helen Keller do if she wants to ask us for advice?
I don't know. What can you do?
I have no idea.
Nothing? Okay, that was an anti-joke. I'll give you guys a real one.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. Why why couldn't you hear Helen Keller screaming when she had an orgasm?
Why?
She was wearing mittens.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.